What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about if Sam is guaranteed to be the final girl. Could she be Ghostface? And go from there. This was a interesting thing, and I talked to some people, some of you guys, in the comments of some of my past videos, and there is a couple people, and that's really what, well, I think I had this idea on my own, but it also sparked me to making it, where people were saying, you know, why is everybody so certain, right, that Sam's the final girl? Now, I guess an easy answer would be, like, the plot synopsis kind of shows that. With it being said, with a movie being based off of misdirections and fake outs and all that stuff, I do think it's fair to question it. At least, no, again, I'm not going to tell you guys what I think. You think whatever you want, and if you disagree or agree with me, either or is completely fine. But I do think that is honestly a part of it. To go in... really, I would say to go in knowing what you have with, like, Sydney, Gale, and Dewey is probably the most you can do safely. Of course, you can do stuff with Richie, you can do stuff with Sam, and again, based off of the plot, based off of her, I mean, literally being the lead, no one's gonna question that, right? Like, she's definitely the lead of the movie, even like her clothing, attire, right? Including in the now famous maybe picture with her holding the phone, you know, in Stu's house, which is a phenomenal picture, by the way. Even that is like, it's very, very similar even to the clothing that Sydney wore. So, I mean, the signs are obviously, you know, trickled down, or they're sprinkled down to at least suggest that she's gonna be the main character. But yeah, it doesn't have to mean that she is for sure the final girl. Now, final girl actually probably in this case means two different things, right? Number one, she literally, like everybody else, dies around her, and she is the final one, but she's also a survivor. But number two, a kind of a deeper meaning that gets, you know, glossed over often, which is fair, is that she's not an evil person, right? She's not the killer. She's obviously like a victim, and that's why she's actually a survivor to it, right? So that's obviously what's being painted, and that is what the synopsis kind of paints. That's what the trailer paints. That's what promotional pictures paint. All of that stuff. And so, you know, and maybe some of it just comes from, like, people wanting to go against the system, which I have nothing against, right? People wanting to be like, well, you know, it's in our face so much, but what if, you know, none of it, again, like, all of it could just be to misdirect you. Now, it's not like a Drew Barrymore thing where people thought originally, right, or that it was marketed that she was going to be a big part of it, and she dies immediately. That, in my opinion, really gets, I guess, gifted to Jenna Ortega. Even though I don't think she's going to die, I do think she's going to be in the movie substantially less than we thought, say, like 2-3 months ago. You know what I mean? Someone who's going to get taken out very early, and maybe she'll be in the final act, but probably is going to be gone for a fair amount of the movie. So she kind of gets that. So Sam, you know, it's not like it's going to be that big of a misdirect where we think, oh, you know, she's going to be leading this new generation and this new movie. And all of a sudden, you know, the scenes that we see her in are the only scenes she's in. But with that being said, obviously, even for, like, Scream 4, we've been through this before, right? Like, Jill being what you would assume, like, Jill and Kirby, one of the two, or maybe even both of them, being characters to, not just lead the next generation, but also be the survivors of whatever this Ghostface killing is, and survive and make it into the next one. Now, they had to, you know, they picked, basically, right? So Kirby was basically destined to be the survivor and the one they would carry, and Jill, although Jill was supposed to be a longer Ghostface, you know what I mean, like, she was supposed to be around for more than one movie, so she was supposed to be a big part of it for sure, but she was obviously intended to be this big misdirect where it's like, well, she's got a lot of similarities to Sydney. You'd probably argue she's more like Sydney in 4 than Kirby is, right? And yet again, you know, she's the one who ends up being the killer at the end of the day. So what I guess I'm saying with all that is, it's definitely possible that there is one final fake out with the entire movie. Now, a couple people I actually saw said something very interesting, or one person I think said it as like a statement, like a declaration that, you know, Melissa Barrera's character in Sam, she's like the third Ghostface. Like, you maybe think it's Richie and just throw out, you know, it could be Liv, could be Amber, whatever, but maybe it's also Sam at the very end. That would be a combination of not just a surprise, but also not really copying, and it's hard to do this, by the way, because these movies have to be similar in a way, but it wouldn't be copying 4 either, you know what I mean, because it's an additional member, so, like, you know, there's 2 of them, and then all of a sudden, like, they have a leader, kind of like, I guess, Billy and Stu, and then Roman, but that was separated, right, in terms of 3 different movies, or really 1 and 3, whereas this would be all altogether. So I guess it's in terms of my opinion on it, I love the idea. And I say that actually for a lot of these theories, right? Actually, I love talking about them. I love reading them because I think some of them are just so smart and so not even like, well, wacky maybe comes across in like a bad way, but like wacky and weird in a good way, where it's like I'd love to see like a Scream multiverse and see, kind of see these things happening with us not being aware of other options and kind of experience that for the first time. But I like it. So I do like the idea that, even the things we think are pretty safe, right? Because again, there's so much left in the up in the air with this movie. There's so many, and we've talked about, a lot of aspects of that trailer that could be like that. But what about the characters themselves? Or not even the characters themselves, because we've talked about, a lot of them. Amber, is she like a huge, red herring? Liv, all these. Wes, obviously, is a big one. Richie. But what about, like, the main girl? Again, the only thing you can say safely is, Sydney Gale Dewey. You never really had, besides 4, you never really had this problem before, right? Because you had 1, 2, 3, and, like, 1... nobody really knew at the time, right? So it's like, well, you're going to make Sydney, and, that was never really, an option, making Sydney Ghostface. So you had 1 through 3, and then 4, I guess 4, and again, like, I wasn't really a part of 4 leading into it. Like, I knew about it, I knew it was coming out, and again, like, I watched it afterwards, so I don't really know what people, I guess, thought leading into 4. You guys will have to let me know, maybe if you were part of it. Like, what did people think about the new cast? Were the people that were thrusted to the front of the line, right? The main, say, 2 to 3 people, and again, I think Kirby and Jill were probably like those main 2, right? Like, and I would say that was even the way with promotional, pictures and videos and interviews and just all the talk. I feel like, again, looking at it years later, those were the 2. So, did anybody question whether or not? Maybe they did, but and if they did, you know what? You have the, and actually, well, let me say this: if you did, you were right because they did that with Jill. So the question would be, now this time you have a couple of these characters. Now maybe again, that's being given to Tara, that's been given to Jenna Ortega's character. So maybe not only is she a combination of almost like a Casey Becker, but maybe she's also like a Jill, where you'd imagine she is one of these leaders. But she's like the youngest person, like age-wise, on this cast. So like you'd maybe think, well, maybe you'd want to keep her around. And Sam, she's older. Even Melissa Barrera. Like, what's funny, and I've said this, I've actually thought this before. What's funny is she's like a year younger than Hayden Panettiere. She's 31. Hayden Panettiere is 32. So like it's a new generation, but really, her being the lead, she's, I think, the oldest one, or one of the oldest one of that group. Dylan Minette's a little bit younger, 24. He's turning 25. So, like, I mean, it's just kind of odd. And it's like, really, actually, more than anything, that maybe leaves the door open for anything. Because it's like, do you want a 31-year-old leading it, or do you want, Jenna Ortega's like 18? Do you want her leading it? And does that play its way into the movie? And those are literally just questions because I don't know. But like I said, I love the idea of it. I guess my prediction, even though I talked to your guys' ears off for 8 minutes, I don't think she's gonna be Ghostface. But boy, will I be like, I'm open to the idea. So, like, if it happens, I'd be like, yeah, you know what? You people that called it early on, you were right. So, I'm kind of in the middle, but I would say you need characters to start to grow, or I guess to, like, plant themselves here and then, like, grow in the future and become the leads. And really, Sam and Tara probably are those 2. Everybody else could be, but a lot of them are going to die, I would imagine, right? So it's like those 2 could be. Then it's like, do you have to pick between them, or are both of them just going to survive and they'll both be people that we kind of live on with over the next like 5 to 10 years? Or is it another misdirect? Or again, even the theory that, because if it's like Tara, Amber, Sam, that does make sense because you got like the sister dynamic, and then you have the girlfriend, one of the sisters. Even like, well, I guess then you'd have to go 4 because of Richie, but he could just be there as a red herring. So you could make like a family dynamic there if you want to connect. If you think Tara's Ghostface, maybe Sam is as well. Would Sam do all that stuff to Tara in the beginning of the movie as we see in the trailer? I don't know, but it's definitely fun to talk about. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Make sure, as always, you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, so you know all these videos go up. I got loads more. Like, I come up with Scream videos quite often in my mind. I try to write them down, but if you guys have any suggestions or ideas of what you want me to make videos of, definitely let me know in the comments, and I'm more than willing, to make a video on it. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter, or subscribe to my second channel, or support me on Patreon or YouTube memberships, links for all of them are in the description below. Thank you for watching, guys, and I'll see you all on the next video.